All right, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you all are having a great day today. So today, there's a couple quick announcements. First of all, the quizzes are due tonight at midnight, so make sure you get them submitted before 11:59 p.m. Apart from that, the test will start at 2:30 p.m. today. I got to thinking about it, and I thought, a lot of people don't like, having exams on Friday. So if you're one of those people, feel free to take it today after the review. Certainly, that's perfectly fine. It'll close at midnight on, let's see, tomorrow. So it'll close at midnight on Friday, but you'll have today if you want to do it today, or, tomorrow if you want to do it tomorrow. So it's really up to you. There will be a little bit different this time where I'll have a supplement that I'll send out at the end of the review to everyone. It's also found, I believe, inside of Unit 2, inside of Canvas, but it's definitely inside the quiz. So before you start the quiz, make sure you have the supplement ready. Some of the questions on there do reference it. Also, I went ahead and made sure that I put any sort of image that the exam uses. Made sure that's inside the quiz, or inside the supplement, rather. So just want to get those things out of the way. Apart from that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Ask me any questions you want. So again, I've got the same list of terms here that I was for the previous test. Just go to Unit 2. This is what could be on the test. Ask any questions about anything. If you want to see examples, if you want me to go through a problem that kind of encompasses all the risk analysis things you're likely to see, anything at all.
How many questions will the test be?
It's going to be 56 questions. So you'll have 1:20 per question again. And that should be pretty doable. When I give this test in person, usually most of the class is out of there in, 50 minutes. So it's a bit similar format to last time. Make sure that you're, going through it at a good pace. Do you guys want to see an example of the risk analysis?
Yeah, that would be
fantastic. Yeah, that'd be good.
All right, I've got one ready. So again, kind of what I wanted to do here was make sure that, I had a good example that kind of goes through. I'm not going to say 100% of what you'll see on the test, but I'm pretty sure this encompasses all the different sorts of intricacies with one of these sorts of problems. So this is going to be a lot more complicated than any single problem you'll see on the exam. Just make sure that whenever you're going through these problems, you read them carefully and you kind of, see what they're saying. So let's go ahead and read this off. Bill runs a technology firm. He currently applies some security measures, but they do not meet the regulatory compliance his firm is subject to. As such, he anticipates getting hit with an attack every 10 years. Bill's firm will lose $100,000 in business and have to pay $200,000 in fines to a government agency. Bill is approached by Steve, who offers to provide services to Bill for $190,000 up front and $10,000 per year for the next 10 years. Steve claims he can reduce the occurrences of attack to once every 100 years. Additionally, Steve's services will remove the fine since his services meet the regulatory requirements. Based on this, what should Bill do? So if you think back to earlier in the semester, we did some risk analysis. One of the first things we did was we saw what is the cost of occurrence? What is going to happen if we take this as is, and we kind of see how much we're going to be affected. So we're just going to go ahead and do cost of occurrence. And, looking at the problem, we see there's $100,000 in lost business and $200,000 in fines. So our total cost of occurrence is going to be $100,000 for the lost business, plus those additional $200,000 in fines. And that's going to give us a total cost of occurrence here of $300,000. But we're not going to have that every year. Instead, we're going to have that some proportion of years is what we're going to anticipate. So we have a likelihood of occurrence, and that is given to us as every 10 years. So we want to get that inside of a percentage. So we're just going to take 10, divide that by 100, and that gives us 10%. So now we want to get the annualized cost of occurrence and annualize that cost out to see what is our expected loss every year. And also we have to do to calculate that is just take in that cost of occurrence, which is $300,000. We calculate that above, and multiply it by the likelihood of occurrence, which is 10%. And just a reminder, to multiply percentages, you can convert it to decimal pretty easily. Just shift the decimal place 2 places. So you multiply that by 0.01, and you're going to get $30,000. Feel free to interrupt if there's any questions at any point. Something's not clear. That's what this day is about. So that's our first option. If we do nothing, we're anticipating paying $30,000 every year. Now let's go ahead and see what's likely to happen if we kind of engage in these protective measures. So let's go ahead and start off with a new cost of occurrence. So cost of occurrence with protection. So in this problem, you'll see that it actually changes the cost of occurrence with protection. So previously, we were going to have $100,000 loss in business and pay $200,000 in fines. But if you read this question, Steve's business will remove the fines. So it's not going to change the $100,000, but it will remove this $200,000 in fines. We're just going to go ahead and make that cost of occurrence as $100,000. In addition to that, we're going to go ahead and calculate the likelihood of occurrence, which is given as once every 100 years with protection. So 1 out of 100, and that of course is 1%. So now what we want to do is we could calculate the new annualized cost of occurrence. We just want to see how much it's going to cost for this to occur, and that's going to be taking our cost of occurrence with protection and multiplying that by our likelihood of occurrence, which is 1%. And that's going to give us, well, I skipped a step there. It's going to give us $1,000. But are we done right now? We're not quite done because we have to see what the services cost. So let's go ahead and look at this. So bills approached by Steve, who will provide services for $190,000 up front. Let's go ahead and work with that number right there. Upfront cost of protection given as $190,000. Okay, and additionally, $10,000 per year for the next 10 years. So total operating cost protection. Just going to go ahead and calculate that as 10,000 times 10 years. That gives us $100,000. So if we want to get the total cost of protection, all we do is we go ahead and we add up the $190,000 for the upfront cost. Add that in to the total operating cost, which is $100,000. So we add in $190,000 plus $100,000, and that of course gives us $290,000. Now we like to work in the same units, so we're going to go ahead and annualize that. Annualized cost of protection. We're just going to take $290,000. And because we know this is going to be good for 10 years, we're just going to divide this by 10, and that gives us $29,000. So now to get the total annualized cost of protection, we simply add up the annualized cost of occurrence, which is 1,000, and we add in the annualized cost of protection, which is 29,000. And that equals 30,000. Okay, so with this, this is kind of a tricky thing here. These are the same, so it's the same to do nothing as it is to take the protective measures. So in this case, we could just say something to the effect of the total annualized expected costs are the same. So there is no difference. And on the exam, you'll have 3 choices for these problems. you'll have doing nothing, which would be if this number were lower than this number. So if the annualized cost of occurrence without the protection is lower than the total annualized cost with protection, if that number is lower, then you'll do nothing. If the annualized cost with protection is going to be higher, or rather if it's lower, then you would take the protective measure, whatever it may be. And then if they're the same, you'll just select the option that says there's not a difference, or there's the same, or something to that effect. So are there any questions about this problem? Did I lose anyone in any of the steps? Anything like that? Need to go over again. All right, any other questions?
Like, what does the N to many mean? What does like the N stand for?
Sure, so that would be like if we had an ERD. Let me pull one up for you. It'd be like if we had an ERD, and instead of having it be a max of 1 or a max of infinite, it'd be something in between those two. Maybe we want to have a max of 22. We could do 1 to n, where n would equal 22. So the max kind of occurrences of that relationship would be 22. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just making sure I know what the variable meant.
Gotcha. And n would be given. I don't think I really have a relationship on the exam that uses n, but if I were to, it would be given. It would literally say the number. It wouldn't say n likely. So you might see one where it kind of reads to where it has that above it. Let me just pull up an ERD because I have a feeling there's some more questions about those. And like I say, ask questions about anything you like.
So we'll have to fill one of these out on the test, exam 3?
No, you're not going to be filling one out, but you'll be reading ERD to kind of get information from it. You're not going to be, telling what goes where. You might be answering a question about what is where. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So, in fact, I can even pull up the exam 2 supplement if I can find it. Give me just a second, guys. And this is what's actually going to be on the exam. So yeah, this is the supplemental file you'll be given. So basically, you'll have this ERD, and I might ask you a question. I might say, where is the time of the appointment stored? And you'd say it's in the appointment entity because it's right here. But if I ask you where is the location of the appointment stored, it's not stored inside of this ERD. So you would say it's not stored. So you might ask it, kind of go through a question like that. I could also ask you, how many clients does an appointment belong to? So you'd look at this and you'd say, well, here's appointment right here, and here's client, and there's a relationship. So you'd read this, appointment has one and only one client, but a client has 0 to infinite appointments. Let me zoom in on that a little bit. So again, you'd read that appointment has one and only one client. Client has 0 to infinite appointments. And I think it was it Brandon who asked a question earlier about the N?
Oh, that was me, Ben.
Oh, I gotcha.
That's
yeah,
cool.
so Ben, what you would see is instead of having just like a 1 here, where it's kind of close to this client, you'd actually see it have like a 23 or something like that above. So it will be labeled, but I don't, like I say, these are the actual ERDs that are used on the exam. None of them are using an N. So it's pretty uncommon to see that, but it is something you could see. So that's why it's there. Any other questions? And again, just to kind of remind you all, these are the terms you would need to know. So if you want to ask a question about any of them, looks like there's about 140 terms on there.
Okay, what's the Trojan horse again, and the whaling?
Sure. So I'll start with a
Like in
Trojan
simple,
horse.
like in simple terms. I listened to it on the lecture, but could you in simple terms, what do they mean?
Yeah, sure. So basically, a Trojan horse is an application that appears legitimate, and it does in fact do legitimate things, but it has a malicious component to it. So maybe it'd be like if you downloaded a version of Microsoft Office, and the version you downloaded did everything Microsoft Office did, but it had an additional kind of malicious part to it. So someone basically inserted some stuff into a legitimate program. It's pretty common with things like open source applications to have that sort of thing happen because you can get the source code and easily add in those malicious components. And then whaling would be if you wanted to target maybe an executive, or you wanted to target maybe a high-ranking politician, someone who has a lot of kind of formal social stature in some way. Maybe it's a job, maybe it's anything like that. You're trying to target someone because of their rank. You could send them an email, kind of like a standard phishing email, only because you're targeting them based on their rank. It's a whaling attempt. Now that contrasts with spear phishing. In spear phishing, you would send someone an email and it would be targeted, but it wouldn't be because they're like the CEO of a company or something like that. And then phishing would just be you're sending out a lot of emails to try to get into accounts or whatever you're trying to do, but they're not targeted at any one person. So it's pretty common to use things like mail alerts, maybe delivery alerts, invoices, stuff like that are often used in phishing attempts.
Okay.
All right, I can take any questions at all.
What's the hardest question on it? Like you did the last exam where you gave us the hardest question and then gave us the answer. Can you do that again?
I don't see why not. I'll have to pull up the test, though, if that's cool. So if anyone has a quick question while I'm, glancing through the exam, feel free to ask.
Okay, what's the SCADA attack? I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, it's supervisory control and data acquisition attack. That would actually occur if you were to target some sort of industrial control system or some sort of a utility generation, something like that. Just basically targeting a very important system. All right, so I'm just going through the exam right now to answer that question. I tell you guys what. I think one of the more challenging questions is actually, coincidentally, it's like a word problem like what we did. I could show you all that one, or I can keep looking for another question. It's up to you all. All right, so I've got another option, and that's probably, I would say, one of the harder questions as well. So I'll let you see one of the two if you prefer another word example or another word problem example, I can do that. Or if you prefer just a question that kind of uses some critical thinking skills, I can do that as well.
I think I'm gonna vote like the critical thinking one, but I mean, I'm only one out of what? How many people is in here? Like 8 people?
I'm not sure the exact number.
Well, I vote the critical thinking or whatever it is.
Yeah, that works for me too.
Yeah, that works for me.
All right, you guys are gonna be mad. I had it and I just lost it. So, okay, I think I've got it. All right. So this question asks, which of the following is not a potential drawback of the 2080 rule? So of the possible answer choices, any feedback gained from social media may be subject to minor selection bias. That is a potential drawback, so that's not the correct answer. Another possible answer would be the 20% may get angry and lead to either drastic drop in participation, or overwhelmingly negative post. So that's like saying that if you make a change that upsets the 20% of your users who are most active, they may not be active anymore, and you may have quite a bit fewer activity, maybe 80% fewer activity. And even worse than that would be is if they posted a bunch of negative stuff. So imagine if 80% of the posts on an internal company forum were negative. That'd be a problem. So that is a potential drawback of the 20/80 rule. And then the last possible answer is users outside of the 20% may not feel valued. And that's another possible drawback. Certainly imagine if you were using a company's products and, maybe you see the same people kind of posting over and over and getting kudos from the company. That could be something where you may not feel valued. So the correct answer is that 20% of users can enthusiastically support your firm. And the reason that's not a potential drawback is because that's a good thing. If people are enthusiastically supporting your firm, that's certainly beneficial from the firm's perspective. So it requires a little bit of critical thinking there. I think that's probably one of the trickier questions on here. But that's pretty much what you would kind of your thought process to answer that question. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So certainly feel free to ask any other questions.
So tomorrow is the exam and the group discussion?
So basically you can take the exam from 2:30 on until midnight tomorrow. Technically speaking, the due date for the discussion is Monday at midnight. The due date for the quizzes for Unit 2 is tonight at midnight. So kind of 3 due dates kind of back to back.
Okay, wait, so when does the exam open? 2:30 today, or?
Yeah, exactly. Because I know some people don't like Friday exams, and I get that, so you got the option to take it Thursday if you'd rather. Any other questions?
But we'll still get on at 1 for that verbal group discussion, though, right? If we want to, not do the paragraphs.
I don't think so, because it'll be the exam tomorrow, so I don't really have that scheduled. That's one of the drawbacks of having a Friday exam when I also had a Friday discussion plan. So it'd probably be better just to do the paragraphs, because I won't really be hosting class tomorrow. So I apologize for that. I'll certainly miss having a discussion, but just with the schedule. I thought about pushing it to like Monday or something, but looking at the calendar, Monday we're covering analytics. That's going to be a very big chapter. We'll do some stuff in Excel to kind of show some of the basic analytical techniques we could do. Tuesday we'll be covering customer relationship management, supply chain management. Again, we'll do some stuff in Excel with supply chains. And then Wednesday we're covering chapters 8 and chapter 6, which are basically wireless communication and traditional network communication. So that's 2 chapters in one, so there won't really be time during then. And then Thursday is the Technology Guide 3 and the course review. Friday, of course, is reading day. And then Monday and Tuesday, I believe, is final exams. So just kind of based on the schedule, I just figured, probably won't have time to do it in class, unfortunately.
So that last exam is just on the last few chapters next week, or is it over those chapters and everything we've learned?
Yeah, so the final exam is cumulative. The good news is that if you did better on the final than you did on one of the previous 2 exams, I'll replace one of the previous 2 exams with the final. I guess the bad news is that it's a cumulative final, so it's pros and cons, but it's going to be a very similar format to what you've had before. And in a summer class, it's not like you had it 4 months ago or anything. So hopefully it's still pretty fresh on everyone's mind. Any other questions?
And that SQL?
Yeah, so SQL is structured query language. Basically, it's a kind of a standardized way in which you can interact with databases. And there's a lot of different implementations of it. Microsoft has a proprietary version of it. MySQL, which is an Oracle product, has a very proprietary implementation of it. Oracle has additional proprietary products relating to SQL. And then there's things like PostgreSQL. There's a lot of different implementations of SQL, but the whole idea is that it's relatively constant. I mean, the commands and stuff, they're not identical, but they're very similar. So, I mean, mostly you shouldn't have too many issues going from one product to another. But the good news is that the data can freely go from one application to another if they're using a SQL database. So again, make sure that you go through these list of terms here. Any questions at all, I'm happy to address. Do y'all want me to go through an example in ERD? Go through the different parts of that? I can. It's whatever you all want. Does anyone want me to go through an ERD?
Sure.
All right, I'm happy to. So I'll just go through this one that's definitely going to be on the exam. So basically, an ERD, the whole purpose of it is to show the relationship between tables and to show, the cardinality and all that sort of thing. So with that, we have an entity. And an entity is basically the name of a table. So right here, it's going to be a noun. It's going to be employee. This is our employee table, so where we have information about our employees. And specifically, the information that we have is referred to as attributes. That is to say, that's going to be our columns within the table. So right here, we have employee number, employee first name, employee last name, employee phone number, employee email address, employee last name. These are all attributes of employee. And in addition to that, we have a primary key, which uniquely identifies each instance or occurrence of employee. So in other words, that's going to be unique to every single record within inside of that table. So right here, it's employee number. We denote that, in this case, using PK. Other times we could use an asterisk. That's another way we could denote a primary key. It's typically going to be the very first attribute or attributes in the case of appointment. Down here, we actually have 3 primary keys, which form one composite key for appointment. And then basically, we also see a foreign key. That is to say that this employee number references employee number up here. And the same with client number. Client number references client number right here. So it is, in this case, the primary key inside of appointment, but it's also the primary key inside of another table. That's what that kind of means there. And then beyond that, we've got the attributes, talked about instances. We also have relationships. And the way you read these is you'd go like department, and you want to see what it's related to. So you look at department. What physical connection does it have to another entity? Well, it only has one. It has a connection with employee. So to read it, you'd go department has 0 to many employees, but employee belongs to one to many departments. And I just kind of reiterate, you could see many or infinite in terms of the max cardinality. You could see those used interchangeably. So on the exam, I think I might use the term infinite a few times, but just know that if it's larger than 1 and it's not specified at a max, so it's going to be either many, it's pretty common to use, infinite, it's pretty common to use, infinity is also common to use. And again, that's kind of how you read these. So any questions about that? Did I cover it well?
So you said the employees has many to one departments. Is that what you said?
Well, so employee works for one to many departments. So basically what I'm saying is that an employee must work for at least one department. We get that from the thing that's further from the entity that it's referencing. And then the thing that's closer to what it's referencing, the entity, this little crow's foot symbol, where we basically have three things going like that, that's going to be the maximum cardinality. So we're saying that employee can work for one department, but there's no limit to the amount of departments that an employee can work for. A lot of times it could be one-to-one. So example of one-to-one is a client has one and only one employee assigned to them, but an employee has between 0 and infinite clients. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions? So again, any of these terms, it'd be a pretty good bet that you'll see some questions about them. So if you're not sure about something, feel free to ask. I'll certainly address it. Well, I've got a question for you all then. See this portrait behind me? All right, the first person who tells me the significance as it relates to the College of Business as to why this portrait's on the wall, I'll give 5 points on exam 2.
I can't see it.
All right, let me get a little closer. Is that better?
Oh, I just see the Excel
Yeah,
map.
you're a little off,
Yeah, the
off
old man, the building
middle.
on
Yeah.
the
Oh, I see. Well, I was going to give some extra credit away, but anyway, it's a picture of, I think it's pronounced Bowen Hall. Could be Bowen Hall. I'm not sure. If you tell me the significance as it relates to College of Business, I'll give you 5 points on the exam.
It was the first building where business classes were hosted.
So it wasn't the first building.
It was the only building.
Well, no, I mean, we're in McCool right now. It's certainly not the only building that we've had classes. Something about the School of Business, or College of Business, rather. Any other ideas for why it'd be hanging on my wall?
I mean, I feel like it could be like infinite possibilities. So maybe you just like the building. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I actually had never heard of the building before today. No, I mean, Jordan was close earlier.
Was it like the second oldest or the largest building to ever? Well, not the no largest won't work. McCool's probably larger. Dang.
Any other guesses?
Was it the building that got burned down?
I think that was Old Main that got burned down.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, Old Main is actually where McCool is today, if I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't that once Lee Hall?
The Bowen Hall?
No, Lee Hall. Wasn't the School of Business and Industry relocated from Lee Hall to Bowen Hall? And it was the first dean of business, James V. Bowen.
Yeah, I think that's correct. So it's the second place that the College of Business was held, was inside of Bowen Hall. So it's actually from 1943 to 1975. I thought that was pretty cool trivia about the college. Hence the reason it's hanging on my wall now. Pretty cool. So great job, Brittany. So yeah, any other questions though about the content? That won't be on the exam, by the way. Don't worry about that. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, I mean, certainly hope you all have a great weekend. I'll see you all Monday. But I can answer any questions you all have about the content.